Tuples are another container object in Python, and tuples are extremely similar to lists in the sense that they contain an ordered sequence of objects. However, tuples are immutable, meaning that once I've created the tuple, I can't make any modifications to it. So this is commonly used in situations where you have data which you want to prevent yourself from maybe making changes because it's considered a constant. So maybe you have some days of the week, and now days is a tuple, and just like a list, I can use indexing operations to access a particular value in the tuple. So index position 1 is Wednesday in the second position. And just like lists, it also supports this feature of using negative indices, which means instead of starting at the beginning when I count, I actually start at the end. So days at -1 returns the last value in the tuple. And of course, Python does bounds checking and won't let you access something that doesn't exist. So if I try to do days 3, that's an index out of range because there's only 3 values in my list, which correspond to index values 0, 1, and 2. I can also do slicing operations on a tuple, just like I do with a list. So in this case, my slicing operation just returns a single value because I go from 0 up to but not including index 1. So remember that in the slicing notation, if I wanted to get the first 2 values, I would do something like this. And of course, as I said, tuples are immutable, and that means that I cannot make changes. So for example, if I try to make a change and replace Friday with Sunday using this operation, I get a message that the tuple object does not support item assignment. It's immutable. I cannot make changes to it once I've created it. And this sometimes causes problems because it may be difficult to form a tuple all in one step. So one option is that you may start creating the data that you'd like to put into the tuple using a list because a list is mutable. So I might populate my list with some data, and once I've put all of the data into the list, I can go ahead and create a tuple from that. And I do that using a cast or conversion operation. So originally days was a list because it was shown there with the square brackets. And now if I do this, I'm showing that days is now shown with the curved parentheses indicating that it's a tuple. And of course, if I ever wanted to confirm that, maybe I was forgetful and didn't remember that curved parentheses represented tuples, I can always use the type command and double check the data type of one of my objects. So tuples are interesting because you can kind of create these objects that you can no longer modify, kind of protect yourself from accidentally making modifications. But fundamentally, they don't really do anything that a list can't do. However, you will probably still use them indirectly, and that's because perhaps I wanted to do some printing using strings and do the variable substitution at certain locations. And when I'm doing this and specifying that the value A is going to get substituted in here and the value for B is going to get substituted in here, you'll notice that I actually do that with curved brackets here and here. So what I'm actually doing is creating a little tuple here that's passed to the print operator. So I go ahead and hit enter here, and you'll notice that I do get the expected results. A equals 2, comma B is equal to 5. And you can also do the same thing by actually creating a separate tuple and actually giving it a variable identifier to use. So this is the exact same thing. So instead of just creating the tuple on the fly, I've pre-created it and given it the name C. And again, I get the same output that I got before. So two different options for specifying variables that are going to be substituted in as strings when you do print statements.